Welcome back to Science in Sleeping. It's always a quiet joy to know that you've returned to spend this night in gentle company. Whether you are here for comfort, for curiosity, or simply to find the stillness you've been seeking all day, you are welcome. Tonight, we'll be wandering through time, drifting into the strange and wondrous world of creatures that once ruled the earth. Not the dinosaurs you've already heard about 1,000 times. Not just the towering T-Rex or the long-necked Brachiosaurus, but the weird ones, the forgotten ones, the ones so peculiar that they almost sound like dreams themselves. Dinosaurs with sails on their backs like ships at sea, with crests that sang like musical instruments, with feathers before birds had truly arrived. These are the dinosaurs that don't just live in science books, they live in imagination, and tonight, they will live softly in your dreams. I want you to know, as always, that you don't need to remember a thing from this journey. The purpose here is not to memorize names or timelines, not to study or prepare, but to drift, to allow your mind to wander the way it did when you were a child looking at the stars or clouds. This is both a bedtime story and a gentle exploration, a place where science becomes soft enough to rest upon. So, wherever you are right now, maybe lying in bed with the light dimmed, or sitting quietly as the world around you slows, I invite you to breathe a little deeper. Let your shoulders sink, let your jaw relax, and let your body remember that it knows how to rest. Because tonight, there is no rush, no deadline, no task waiting at the edge of your mind. Tonight, there are only stories. Stories about creatures long gone, but never truly forgotten. Stories that carry us back more than 60 million years, to a time when the world itself was different, yet somehow still familiar. Imagine, for just a moment, that you are standing on the edge of a forest that has been gone for millions of years. The air is thicker, warmer, the plants taller and stranger than those outside your window. There is a hum of life all around you, but it is not the hum of city lights or car engines. It is the hum of insects with shimmering wings, the rustle of giant leaves, the distant calls of creatures whose voices have not echoed on this planet for an age. And somewhere in the shadows, a dinosaur steps carefully, not a giant predator, not a towering sauropod, but something strange and unexpected, something that seems to belong to both dream and memory. That's where we will begin tonight, with the dinosaurs that make you tilt your head and wonder if nature was playing, creatures that remind us how much imagination the earth itself contains. And as we wander through them, one by one, I hope that curiosity will become a gentle background music to your rest. Because even if your eyes close and sleep takes you, your mind will be soothed by knowing that you are drifting through mystery, through wonder, through time. So settle in now. Let the rhythm of my voice be enough to carry you. Feel free to release the day behind you, and together, let's take our first soft step into the age of the strangest dinosaurs that ever lived. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to stumble across a creature so unusual that it seemed more like something drawn from a dream than built by evolution? A being so different that you might question whether it truly lived on the same Earth we know. One such dinosaur was called the Therizinosaurus, a creature with claws longer than swords, a body covered in soft feathers, and a gentle plant-eating habit that contradicted its terrifying appearance. When paleontologists first discovered its fossils, they could hardly believe what they were seeing. Even today, the Therizinosaur stands as a riddle, a reminder that nature often writes stories stranger than fiction. Picture yourself now, not in the world of today, but in a prehistoric landscape more than 70 million years ago. The air is heavy and warm. A faint mist curls through a forest of ferns, cycads, and ancient conifers. You are standing on soft ground, soil that has been pressed for centuries by the heavy steps of giants. Around you, the canopy rises high, blocking out much of the sunlight. Yet shafts of golden light pierce through, illuminating patches of green like natural spotlights from somewhere in the distance. You hear the low call of a dinosaur, deep and resonant, carried through the humid air, and then, through the veil of leaves and shadow, something moves. It is not a towering carnivore with teeth flashing, nor the long neck of a gentle sauropod reaching toward the treetops. It is stranger, quieter, almost cautious. A creature with arms so long that each one seems to stretch further than it should, ending in claws that curve like scythes. Each one as long as your arm. Its body is cloaked in feathers, not sleek like a bird, but shaggy, almost like the fur of some primeval beast. Its head is small compared to its body, with a beak that looks better suited for cropping plants than tearing flesh. And as you watch, you realize this strange, almost awkward-looking dinosaur is not a monster at all, but a slow-moving browser, gently plucking leaves from the forest edge. This is Therizinosaurus, and it is both haunting and oddly peaceful scientifically. Therizinosaurus is one of the strangest dinosaurs ever found. It lived in what is now Mongolia during the late Cretaceous period, around 70 million years ago. It could grow up to 10 meters in length, taller than a two-story house. And yet it was not built for speed or hunting. Instead, it used its massive claws, some over 3 feet long, perhaps to pull down branches, strip vegetation, or even defend itself against predators. Its entire body plan puzzled scientists for decades. At first, they thought it might have been a giant turtle because the claws seemed too bizarre to belong to a dinosaur. Only later did further discoveries reveal its true identity. A relative of the same group that eventually gave rise to birds, which means, in a strange twist of fate, that this terrifying-looking giant was more closely related to sparrows and pigeons than to the ferocious predators you might imagine. The claws of Therizinosaurus are its most famous feature, but they raise questions even today. Why evolve such impractically large weapons if you are not a hunter? Some scientists suggest the claws helped it gather food, reaching branches other animals could not. Others believe they were for defense, making it look more intimidating to predators. There is even a theory that the claws might have played a role in mating displays. Like the feathers of a peacock, imagine a male Therizinosaurus fanning out its long arms, showing off its incredible curved claws as a symbol of strength. Whatever the reason, the result was a creature unlike anything else, a giant with the heart of a herbivore, dressed in feathers, armed with claws that looked like they belonged to nightmares. And perhaps that is what makes the Therizinosaurus so enchanting. It reminds us that the world is rarely as simple as predator and prey, fierce and gentle, good and bad. it shows us that life invents forms that seem contradictory, yet they survive, they thrive. They leave behind fossils for us to uncover and wonder about. The very existence of Therizinosaurus blurs the line between fear and fascination, because when you first imagine it, you think of danger. But when you picture it carefully in its quiet forest, plucking leaves like an oversized sloth, you realize it was simply another thread in the great tapestry of life. There is poetry in that realization that nature does not always move toward what seems logical to us, that sometimes evolution creates shapes and forms that feel whimsical, almost playful. A dinosaur that looks like a monster, but is as harmless as a grazing deer, a creature that appears frightening, but spends its days among ferns and cycads, living a slow, almost meditative life. Therizinosaurus, with its strange body, its claws like crescent moons, its shaggy feathers catching the light of a prehistoric sun, becomes not just a dinosaur, but a story about perception, about how things that seem frightening at first glance may reveal themselves to be gentle once we take the time to truly see them. In that way, it speaks to us across the ages, reminding us that beauty and gentleness often wear surprising disguises. As you let this image linger in your mind, notice how it softens your thoughts. The day's stresses feel a little smaller, the edges of your worries less sharp. Because if the earth once held room for such strange and gentle giants, perhaps it also holds room for your rest, for your peace, for your dreams tonight. As the forest fades and the Therizinosaurus steps back into the shadows, we too will step onward. There are more dinosaurs waiting, stranger still, each with a story that bends the imagination. And as we drift from one to the next, the line between science and dream will blur ever more softly, carrying you deeper into the night. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to see a dinosaur that seemed less like an animal and more like a living piece of art? A creature whose very skull looked like a sculpture, designed not for survival alone, but to astonish, to surprise, perhaps even to sing. Such was the case with the Parasaurolophus, a dinosaur with a crest so long and elegant that it rose like a curved horn from the back of its head, a crest that scientists now believe was hollow, shaped like a natural instrument, capable of producing sounds that could echo across the ancient world. Imagine it, a dinosaur that might have filled its forests and plains with music, with low, resonant calls drifting through the evening air. Let yourself picture the scene. The sun is setting over a Cretaceous floodplain, the sky painted with soft purples and deepening golds. The air is warm but cooling, and the scents of wet earth and ferns rise as night begins to descend. You are standing near a shallow river where reeds sway gently, casting long reflections on the water. From the distance, you hear a strange sound, low and mournful, almost like the call of a foghorn, but softer, more haunting. It vibrates in your chest, a sound that does not belong to the modern world, yet feels ancient and familiar. And then, from the far side of the river, they appear, a herd of Parasaurolophus, moving slowly in the twilight, their long crests rising and falling as they walk. Their bodies are large but graceful, moving together in quiet unison, and as one of them lifts its head, the sound comes again, a long, hollow note, echoing across the plain like a voice from another time. Parasaurolophus lived about 75 million years ago in what is now North America. It was a hadrosaur, sometimes called a duck-billed dinosaur. Though that name hardly captures its elegance, what set it apart was the crest, which could grow more than 6 feet long in adults, stretching backward in a curved, sweeping arc. Inside, the crest was hollow, forming a complex network of air passages. This was not simply decoration, scientists believe, but a resonating chamber. By blowing air through its crest, the Parasaurolophus may have produced deep, resonant sounds, like the wind moving through a giant flute. These calls might have carried for miles, helping herds stay together, warning of predators, or even attracting mates in this way. Parasaurolophus was more than a dinosaur. It was a living instrument of nature. And what a strange and enchanting image that is. An animal that communicated not just with sight and scent, but with music, a herd that filled the prehistoric night with sound. Long notes, drifting like lullabies across the water. It makes you wonder, did these dinosaurs find comfort in those voices? The way we find comfort in music. Did a baby Parasaurolophus hear the deep notes of its parents and feel safe? Wrapped in the sound of its family, did herds gather together at dusk, their calls weaving into a chorus, creating a soundscape that is now lost to us? The very thought is soothing, a reminder that sound has always been part of life's language. Long before humans wrote songs or built flutes for scientists, the Parasaurolophus crest also tells a story of adaptation. It shows us that survival is not always about teeth or claws, not always about speed or size. Sometimes survival is about communication, about connection, about finding ways to stay together in a world full of danger. Parasaurolophus, with its hollow crest, may have found strength in unity, in calling across the landscape to say, "We are here, we are together." There is something deeply human in that, something that speaks to the way we too find comfort in voices, in hearing someone we love say our name, in listening to music that carries us. It is as if this dinosaur, so strange and long gone, reminds us that connection has always been one of nature's most powerful tools. And yet the mystery remains. What did the calls of Parasaurolophus truly sound like? We can build models, we can use computers to simulate the airflow, but we will never hear the exact notes as they once rang out. It is like a melody from a dream, one we can almost imagine, but not fully grasp. And perhaps that is part of its beauty, that this dinosaur was not just a creature of bone and muscle, but of sound and presence, leaving behind only fossils and silence. In that silence, we are invited to imagine, to dream of a world where animals sang through the air like instruments. So, as you rest here tonight, you can let the image of Parasaurolophus carry you deeper into calm. Imagine lying in soft grass on the edge of that ancient river, the stars beginning to shine in a sky untouched by city lights, the air filled with the chorus of these strange musical giants, their voices rising and falling, blending into the rhythm of the night, each call carrying through your body like a vibration, soothing, grounding, reminding you that you are part of a larger story. The story of life itself, vast, mysterious, and filled with unexpected beauty. And when you breathe out, let the sound of that imagined call wash over you, deep and slow, steady and resonant, Like the sound of the earth itself breathing, the herd moves on, their silhouettes fading into the shadows of the night. The calls grow softer, more distant, until they are no more than echoes in the wind, but the comfort remains. The memory of connection, of music in the dark, of voices that carried across time. And so, with the Parasaurolophus stepping back into its world, we too will step onward, for there are still stranger dinosaurs waiting in the mists of prehistory, creatures that will surprise you, puzzle you, and remind you that the earth has always been full of wonder. And as we continue, the line between learning and dreaming will blur further, carrying you gently, deeper into sleep. Have you ever imagined meeting a dinosaur that seemed less like a predator or a grazer, and more like a creature stitched together from several different animals? One that looked almost too strange to be real, as if nature had tried something experimental. That is the feeling you get when you first encounter a dinosaur so heavily armored that it looked like a living tank, its body covered in plates and spikes, and its tail ending in a massive club of solid bone. It was not the tallest, not the fastest, not even the most aggressive of dinosaurs, but it may have been one of the most indestructible, a creature whose very shape told predators, "Attack me if you dare. Close your eyes and picture this world." The air is thick with warmth. The ground is dusty beneath your feet. You are walking across a late Cretaceous landscape, 80 million years ago, where herds of great herbivores roam the plains. The sky above is wide and endless, streaked with long, drifting clouds. And in the distance, you can see mountains rising, their peaks softened by haze. You hear the distant cries of hadrosaurs echoing, the rustle of foliage as creatures move through the underbrush. And then, low to the ground, you spot something moving slowly, heavily, like a boulder come to life. At first you might mistake it for a rock, but then it takes another step, the plates along its back catching the sunlight, gleaming like pieces of armor. This is a dinosaur that does not need to run, because its entire body is built for defense. Scientifically, Ankylosaurus is one of the most fascinating creatures to study. It lived about 66 million years ago, in the very last age of the dinosaurs, right before the Great Extinction. It grew up to 30 feet long and weighed as much as 8 tons. Yet it moved slowly, grazing on low plants, ferns, and shrubs. What made it remarkable was its armor. Thick, bony plates, called osteoderms, grew directly from its skin, forming a shield that covered its back and sides. These plates were not smooth, but ridged and rough, blending with spikes along the shoulders and sides. And then, at the end of its tail, came the most iconic feature of all, a massive, bony club, like a medieval weapon, formed of fused vertebrae, solid and heavy, capable of delivering blows strong enough to shatter bone. Imagine a predator like Tyrannosaurus approaching, its jaws ready to strike with one swing of that tail. Ankylosaurus could break a leg, crack a rib, even turn a deadly hunter into prey. What's most mysterious is how perfectly Ankylosaurus was engineered for survival. Its low body made it difficult to flip over, its armor made it nearly impossible to bite through, and its club made attacking it a dangerous gamble. And yet, despite its frightening appearance, Ankylosaurus was not a killer, it was a gentle herbivore, content to move slowly through its world, grazing on plants and living in peace. Its ferocity was defensive, not offensive, a reminder that strength can exist without aggression, that sometimes the greatest power is simply the ability to endure. There is something oddly comforting about ankle. It embodies the idea of safety, of protection, of being shielded from harm, as if nature created in this one animal a symbol of resilience. Even its face seems calm, with a beak suited for nibbling plants and small eyes peering out from beneath heavy ridges. It was not built to frighten others away for the sake of dominance. It was built to survive, and in that survival, it thrived for millions of years. Scientists believe Ankylosaurus may have lived in small groups, though its armor gave it confidence to walk alone. Perhaps it moved quietly through the forest edges, tail swinging gently behind it, like a reminder to all who saw, do not come closer. Imagine a herd of these armored giants grazing together, their backs gleaming like stone under the sun, their tails moving slowly, swaying in rhythm like pendulums. And in the silence of the prehistoric night, the only sound they made was the steady crunch of leaves and the occasional thud as a clubtail tested the earth. But let us pause and think about what this means, that such a creature once walked this earth, that millions of years ago, a dinosaur so armored, so perfectly designed for survival, roamed freely. It makes our worries seem smaller, doesn't it? Because if a creature like Ankylosaurus could endure in its world of predators and danger, perhaps we too can endure in ours. Perhaps we too carry unseen armor, invisible to the eye, but strong enough to shield us from the hardest moments. And just like we may discover that our greatest strength is not in attacking, but in enduring, in standing firm, in being present, in surviving. Let this image settle into your mind as you rest. A dinosaur, slow and steady, covered in armor that glints in the sunlight, tail swaying gently as it moves. Its presence is quiet, unhurried, reassuring, and in its company, your body too feels heavier, safer, as if you too have armor protecting you tonight. The day cannot harm you now. The noise cannot reach you. The stress cannot touch you. You are as safe as this ancient creature was in its shield of bone. And so, as Ankylosaurus grazes slowly back into the shadows of its time, let us move onward, for stranger and more wondrous dinosaurs still await. Creatures not armored like tanks, but built with shapes and colors and sounds that defy imagination. The night is long, and the journey through prehistory has only just begun. Let's drift deeper, together, into the world of dinosaurs that were stranger than dreams. Have you ever wondered if some dinosaurs carried secrets not in their bones or their teeth, but in their colors, their feathers, and their dazzling displays? For so long, we thought of dinosaurs as dull, gray giants, their skin imagined like that of elephants or lizards, plain and unremarkable. But discoveries over the last 2 decades have revealed something extraordinary, that some dinosaurs were vibrant, feathered, and painted in colors that shimmered like jewels, and among them, one stands out as especially enchanting Microraptor, a tiny predator with 4 wings, feathers that gleamed in iridescent hues, and the grace of a prehistoric phantom gliding silently through ancient forests. Picture yourself now drifting into the deep forests of northeastern China, 120 million years ago. The canopy is thick overhead, the air cool and moist, filtered with beams of pale sunlight. The ground is soft with fallen leaves, ancient ferns unfurl around you, and dragonflies as large as your hand drift lazily through the still air. You hear a rustle above, faint, like the whisper of silk. Then, out of the shadows, something small and sleek glides between the trees, its feathers catching the sunlight, flashing hints of midnight blue and glossy black. It lands silently on a branch, its golden eyes fixed forward, head tilting like a curious bird. Its arms are wings, feathered and strong, but so too are its legs, each limb stretched with feathered veins, giving it not 2 but 4 wings. And before you can take another breath, it leaps again, not flapping like a bird, but gliding, a ghost with feathers, slipping through the forest like a shadow. This is Microraptor, no bigger than a crow, yet one of the strangest and most beautiful dinosaurs ever discovered. Microraptor's fossils tell a fascinating story. Found in the Liaoning province of China, preserved with exquisite detail. They show feathers not just on the arms, but along the legs and tail. The feathers themselves are preserved well enough that scientists have studied their microscopic structure. And from that structure, they discovered something miraculous, that Microraptor's feathers shimmered with iridescence, much like the feathers of modern crows, starlings, or peacocks. This means that one of the earliest flying dinosaurs was not just feathered, but stunningly colorful, its body glimmering as it moved through the light. It was, in a sense, the original jewel of the skies. But what did those feathers mean? Were they for camouflage, helping it vanish in dappled light, or were they for display, catching the eye of potential mates, dazzling rivals with flashes of color? Perhaps they were for both. Life, after all, rarely creates beauty without purpose, and in Microraptor, we see both survival and spectacle blending into one. The way it moved is another mystery that stirs the imagination. With wings on both arms and legs, scientists believe it glided from tree to tree like a flying squirrel, though more elegant. Some even suggest it may have been capable of limited flapping flight, bridging the gap between earthbound dinosaurs and the first true birds. Imagine it, this small, iridescent hunter, leaping silently from a branch, spreading for wings that shimmer in the sun, gliding like a star fallen sideways through the forest, silent, graceful, deadly, its sharp claws ready to catch insects, lizards, or perhaps even small mammals that scurried in the underbrush. And yet, despite its predatory nature, there is something almost magical about Microraptor. It feels like a creature that could appear in a dream, too delicate and dazzling to be real. And yet, it was real. Living and breathing millions of years before humans even existed, its fossils whisper across time, telling us that beauty and strangeness were present at the very dawn of flight. That nature, even then, painted her creations not just for function, but for wonder. There is a kind of poetry in this, that the earth once held forests where four-winged creatures glided, flashing iridescent colors as the sun filtered through the trees. That the story of flight was not a straight line, but a tangled experiment, with nature trying out strange and marvelous designs. Microraptor may not have been the ancestor of modern birds, but it was part of the same great experiment. An experiment that reminds us that progress is rarely simple, that beauty, color, and even grace can appear at the edges of survival. It is as if Microraptor lived not only as predator and prey, but as performer, its body a canvas of shimmering hues, its flight a dance through the prehistoric air. Now, as you hold this image in your mind, notice how soft and calming it becomes. The gliding motion, the silence of its wings, the way it appears and disappears like a shadow in moonlight. It is not a frightening creature, but a dreamlike one. Its feathers gleaming like stars, its movement as smooth as water flowing downstream, and as you breathe more slowly, you can imagine yourself watching from the forest floor, safe, still, calm, letting your gaze follow its flight until it disappears into the canopy again, leaving only quiet. Microraptor teaches us something subtle but powerful, that the world is full of surprises we might never expect, that even in the smallest forms there can be extraordinary beauty, that survival is not always about being the biggest or strongest, but sometimes about being graceful, clever, and just strange enough to find your own path. It is a story that connects us not just to science, but to the mysteries of life itself, the mysteries that remind us how small we are, and yet how connected. For if such a creature once lived, then what wonders may still remain unseen, waiting quietly for us to discover. So let this vision of Microraptor drift with you as you close your eyes. A small, glowing shadow moving through an ancient forest, shimmering in blues and blacks, gliding from branch to branch as the stars appear above. The forest grows darker, the air cooler, and the sounds of night creatures stir softly. And in that world, you are not hurried, not stressed, but simply present, breathing with the rhythm of the forest, listening to the silence broken only by the soft glide of feathers, until even that sound fades, and you are left with nothing but calm. And so, as Microraptor disappears into the night, we too will continue to meet other dinosaurs, stranger still, each one a step deeper into the dreamlike world of prehistory, each one carrying us further into rest. Have you ever imagined a dinosaur so strange, so unlike anything else, that it seems to belong more to a dream than to the fossil record? A creature that looked as though it had been stitched together from pieces of different animals, a patchwork of contradictions. That creature existed, and its name is Therizinosaurus, one of the strangest, most mysterious, and most mesmerizing dinosaurs to ever walk the earth. Therizinosaurus lived around 70 million years ago. In what is now Mongolia, it was huge, towering up to 33 feet long, with a pot-bellied body and long feathered arms. But the most haunting thing about it, the thing that makes it unforgettable, were its claws. Giant, side-like claws that could reach 3 feet in length. The longest claws of any known animal. Imagine hands stretched outward, each finger ending in a curved blade, sharp and terrible, like something from a nightmare. And yet, despite their terrifying appearance, Therizinosaurus was not a predator. It was, astonishingly, a plant-eater. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this strange creature moving slowly through a prehistoric forest, its body heavy, its neck stretching high toward the leaves of ancient trees, the feathers along its arms swaying like long threads, and then, with a slow and deliberate motion, it lifts one massive claw, curling it delicately toward a branch, not to kill, not to tear flesh, but to pull down tender leaves and fruit. There is something uncanny about it, to see such terrifying weapons used with such gentleness. A contradiction that makes the mind hesitate. And yet, it is real, a truth locked in the fossils. The discovery of Therizinosaurus baffled scientists for decades. At first, only its claws were found, and paleontologists believed they belonged to a massive turtle-like reptile. It was not until later, when more bones were unearthed, that its true form came into focus, a hulking, feathered, plant-eating dinosaur that looked like a cross between a bird, a bear, and a monster from the depths of imagination. Its body was wide and heavy, its legs sturdy, but its head was small, its mouth filled with leaf-stripping teeth. The claws, so frightening at first glance, were actually tools, not weapons. They allowed the Therizinosaurus to pull branches closer, to defend itself if needed, and perhaps even to dig into the ground for roots. What once looked like a nightmare was, in reality, a peaceful giant, and yet, imagine encountering it, the forest quiet, the air heavy with heat. You hear the sound first, a slow rustling, branches bending, leaves falling, then, through the trees, it appears, towering, lumbering, moving with an odd, deliberate grace, its claws glinting in the dappled light. At first, your heart races, for those claws seem to promise violence, but then you watch as it gently pulls down a branch, carefully stripping leaves and placing them into its beak. The terror fades into wonder, and you realize you are witnessing not a monster, but one of nature's strangest masterpieces. Therizinosaurus belongs to a group called Therizinosaurs dinosaurs that broke nearly every rule. Unlike their relatives, the sharp-toothed theropods, like T-Rex or Velociraptor, these creatures abandoned meat for plants. They evolved big bellies for digesting vegetation, long necks for reaching, and feathers that may have covered their entire bodies. It is a reminder that even within groups of fierce predators, evolution can take an unexpected turn, that not every claw is for killing, not every sharp edge is for destruction. Sometimes, the most terrifying forms conceal the gentlest purposes. There is something profoundly calming in this thought, that even in a world as wild and violent as there were giants who lived in peace, who used their fearsome forms not for battle, but for survival through harmony. And as you drift deeper into this vision, you can almost see them moving in herds, a group of Therizinosaurus slowly making their way across the forest floor, their feathers swaying, their claws curling and uncurling like pendulums, the sunlight painting shadows that stretch long and thin across the ground. And above them, the quiet call of ancient birds echoes faintly through the air. Still, a question lingers. If these creatures were peaceful, why did they keep their claws so long? Perhaps predators feared them, keeping their distance from those scythe-like arms. Perhaps the claws served as signals, displays to other Therizinosaurs. Or perhaps they were tools far more versatile than we can imagine. Evolution does not waste without reason, and though we may never know the full story, the mystery itself is part of what makes them so haunting. Now, let your mind wander deeper into this forest. See the giant shapes moving slowly, calmly, almost dreamlike. The air is thick with the scent of earth and leaves, the ground soft beneath your feet. And each time one of these creatures moves its claw, you feel a strange mixture of fear and awe. The claws do not strike, they do not harm. They only glide through the air like slow arcs of the moon. They seem less like weapons and more like symbols. Symbols of how life can take the strangest shapes. Symbols of how even the most terrifying designs can hide gentleness. There is something almost human in this paradox. How often do we fear what we do not understand? How often do we see danger where there is only difference? Therizinosaurus teaches us that appearances can deceive, that behind the most frightening image may lie a quiet truth, a truth that is soft, patient, and full of balance. As you sink further into this story, imagine the forest growing darker, the sun low, the shadows stretching longer, the herds of Therizinosaurus slowly fading into the trees, their claws vanishing into silhouette. You hear only the rustle of leaves, the gentle thud of heavy feet, and then silence. Silence that is deep and comforting, like the earth itself breathing slowly, inviting you to let go of fear, to surrender to the strangeness, to rest in the knowledge that even the weirdest forms of life hold beauty. Therizis the giant with claws like scythes, the monster that was no monster at all. It is a creature that feels like a dream given shape, a reminder that the prehistoric world was full of wonders, stranger than any fantasy. And as you close your eyes now, you carry with you the vision of its slow movements, its gentle feeding, its silhouette vanishing into the night, until all that remains is quiet, and in that quiet, peace. Have you ever thought about how strange it would be if a dinosaur could whistle, or boom, or play music with its own body? Imagine standing in a vast prehistoric plain, the sky painted with the last gold of the evening sun, and across the horizon you hear a haunting sound, a low echo that seems to vibrate in your chest. Not the roar of a predator, not the cry of a bird, but a hollow, resonant tone. It rises, falls, and drifts through the air like the song of an ancient horn. This was the world of Parasaurolophus, the dinosaur with a crest that was more than decoration. It was an instrument, a built-in brass section of the Mesozoic age. Parasaurolophus lived about 75 million years ago, roaming the floodplains of North America. It was a hadrosaur, or duck-billed dinosaur. But what made it unforgettable was the great curved crest that arched from the back of its head. Long, hollow, and beautifully strange, this crest was connected to its nasal passages. So when the dinosaur breathed out or called to its herd, the sound didn't just escape, it resonated, echoing through the crest like air through a trumpet. Scientists believe this dinosaur could produce deep, rumbling calls that traveled far across the landscape, voices of fog and mystery carrying in the night. Now, let yourself picture this scene, the stars just beginning to appear in the dusk sky. A herd of Parasaurolophus gathered by the edge of a river, their reflections trembling in the moving water. Some lower their heads to drink, others chew on ferns and leaves, their tails swaying in gentle rhythm. Then one lifts its head, the long crest glowing faintly in the moonlight. It exhales, and a deep note rolls across the valley. Slow, hollow, otherworldly, the others pause. And then, one by one, they respond, their voices layering, weaving together, until the whole herd seems to hum in unison. A chorus of dinosaurs, singing into the night. It seems almost magical, yet the science behind it is just as fascinating. The hollow crest of Parasaurolophus acted like the pipes of an organ. Depending on the length and shape of the crest, the pitch of the call would change. Some individuals may have had deeper voices, others higher. The variety in their songs could have helped them recognize each other, called to mates, or warn of predators in many ways. Their world was alive with sound. Imagine not just the calls of one herd, but dozens spread across a vast plain, their music overlapping, rising and falling like the tides, creating a soundscape the earth has not heard for 70 million years. And here's a thought: what must it have been like for smaller creatures, mammals scurrying through the underbrush at night, hearing the low rumble of these calls drifting through the darkness? To them, it must have felt like the earth itself was speaking, a reminder that they lived in the shadow of giants. And yet, to the Parasaurolophus, these sounds were simply part of their lives. Communication, connection, a way of belonging. There is something deeply human about this. We to shape sound, to connect, to comfort, to express ourselves. We sing lullabies, hum to ourselves in the quiet. We gather around music to feel part of something greater. And in the soft, resonant calls of Parasaurolophus, there is an echo of that same need, the need to be heard, to be recognized, to belong. But there is also mystery. We cannot be certain exactly what their calls sounded like. Computers have modeled them, giving us an idea, deep, haunting, like the call of a foghorn, but in truth, no human has ever truly heard one. And perhaps that is what makes it so magical. The knowledge that these sounds once drifted through the air, that they once lulled the prehistoric night into rhythm, and yet they are gone, leaving only silence. Now close your eyes and listen, not with your ears, but with imagination. The hum of insects grows softer, the whisper of the river fades, and from the distance comes that low, hollow call. It vibrates in your chest, it hums in your bones. One note, then another, then a chorus, the herd calling to each other across the night. It is both eerie and comforting, strange yet beautiful. And you realize you are not alone in this ancient plain. You are part of something larger, something timeless. Parasaurolophus was not the only hadrosaur with a crest. Its relatives also carried shapes, like helmets, fans, or tubes upon their heads, but none so elegant, so musical as this curved, hollow design. Some may have even been brightly colored, standing tall as both visual and audible displays. Imagine their crests catching the moonlight as they sang, a symphony of shape and sound, not just animals, but performers on the stage of the prehistoric earth. And what if their calls were not only communication but comfort? Imagine a young Parasaurolophus separated from its herd in the tall ferns. It calls out a higher-pitched sound, and from the distance, the deep rolling note of its mother answers. The young one follows, guided through the darkness by sound alone, until at last it rejoins the safety of the herd. That low hum like a heartbeat in the night, carrying across the land like a promise that even in the dark it is not lost. As you drift with this thought, let it settle gently into your own night. You too may feel separated sometimes, adrift in your thoughts, but like the call of Parasaurolophus, there are always threads of connection, voices and echoes that remind you of belonging. Sometimes we hear them in music, sometimes in memory, and sometimes, as you do now, in stories. Stories that connect us across time, across silence, across the deep gulf of millions of years. The herd moves on now. The moon has risen higher, the night grown cooler. Their silhouettes sway as they step away from the river, their calls fading into the distance, like a lullaby that grows softer as sleep arrives. You can still hear it faintly, that deep, hollow resonance, rolling across the plain, until it fades into quiet, leaving you calm, safe, and carried by sound. Parasaurolophus, the dinosaur, with a voice like a horn of the earth, a creature that turned its very body into music, strange, beautiful, unforgettable. And though its calls no longer drift through the night air, perhaps, in dreams, you can still hear them, guiding you into rest, into stillness, into sleep. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to see a dinosaur that looked more like a bird than a reptile? A creature that blurred the line between the world of scales and the world of feathers. Imagine standing in a prehistoric clearing at twilight, the air still, the leaves trembling in the fading light, and through the shadows comes a dinosaur that does not roar, does not thunder. Instead, it glides, wings stretched wide, feathers glowing faintly as they catch the moonlight. This is Microraptor, one of the strangest and most enchanting dinosaurs to ever exist. Microraptor lived about 120 million years ago, in the forests of what is now northeastern China. It was small, about the size of a crow, and yet it was unlike anything alive today, because Microraptor had 4 wings, not 2, feathers stretched not only along its arms, but along its legs as well, giving it the ability to glide, swoop, and perhaps even flap its way through the dense canopy. It was part dinosaur, part bird, part mystery, a living paradox that seemed almost designed for dreams. Picture this ancient forest, towering conifers, the ground thick with moss and shadow, the air humid, the sky dim beneath a thick canopy. You hear a rustle above, and then it appears, leaping from one branch, spreading its 4 wings wide. It does not soar like an eagle, but it drifts, sliding between shafts of light, its feathers shimmering with hints of iridescent blue. Like a living gemstone drifting through the trees, it lands silently, claws gripping bark, head tilting with sharp, bird-like curiosity. And you realize you are staring not at a reptile, not at a bird, but at something in between, a messenger from the borderland of evolution. Scientists believe Microraptor was a skilled glider, using its 4 wings to move between trees. Its feathers were asymmetrical, like those of modern birds, designed for flight. And when its fossils were discovered, with delicate impressions of feathers still preserved, it changed the way we think about dinosaurs forever. No longer were they imagined only as scaly lizards. Now, it was clear, many of them wore feathers. They were colorful, complex, closer to birds than we had ever dreamed. But Microraptor was stranger still. Its wings on its legs make it unlike any bird alive today when it spread them. It formed something like a biplane of flesh and feather, a 4-winged craft navigating the prehistoric forest. Some scientists imagine it launching from high branches, gliding silently through the night to catch unsuspecting prey, small mammals, insects, even fish, for it had sharp teeth, curved claws. A hunter dressed in beauty. Now imagine, as night deepens in this ancient forest, you sit in stillness, the ground cool beneath you, the sounds of insects filling the air, and then, above, a flicker of movement, a shadow glides past, swift and silent. You catch only a shimmer of blue, a whisper of feathers, and then it vanishes into the dark. The forest is alive with secrets, and Microraptor is one of them, a phantom with wings of 4. The suspense of this creature lies not only in its form, but in its story, because Microraptor represents a bridge, a moment in time when evolution was still experimenting, still shaping, still testing designs that would one day give rise to true flight. Perhaps not all of its glides were graceful. Perhaps some were clumsy, wings catching branches. But through these experiments, nature was learning how to turn scales into feathers, how to transform earthbound creatures into flyers. And within Microraptor, you can feel the tension of that transition, a moment balanced between worlds. There is something hauntingly beautiful about that. The idea that even nature itself moves through trial and error. That perfection is not sudden, but slow, uncertain, filled with strange shapes along the way, and yet those strange shapes have their own beauty. Microraptor may not have flown like an eagle, but it glided like a dream. It shimmered in the night. It filled the forest with mystery, and in its brief existence, it left behind fossils that would one day reshape our understanding of life. Close your eyes now and imagine being part of that forest, the canopy heavy above you, the ground soft and dark, and then the sound of wings, but not the wings you know, not the soft beating of a bird, not the leathery flap of a bat, but something different, something layered, like 4 sheets of air moving at once, a hush, a whisper, and then the sight of feathers slipping through moonlight, the strange silhouette of Microraptor drifting by, as if the forest itself had grown a ghost. And here is another thought. Microraptor's feathers, when studied under microscopes, revealed pigment structures, evidence that they were not dull, not plain, but iridescent, dark feathers that shimmered with blues and purples, like the surface of an oil spill or the wings of a raven. Imagine that shimmer moving through the night, a flash of color when the moonlight hit, gone in an instant, leaving you to wonder if you saw a living creature or a trick of the mind. This iridescence adds another layer of wonder, because shimmering feathers are not necessary for survival. They are beauty, they are signal, they are display. Microraptor was not just surviving, it was shining. Even in the deep forests of the Cretaceous, nature was weaving beauty into existence, as if to remind us that life is not only about function, it is also about wonder, about mystery, about art. And so, as you let this image drift across your mind, you can see Microraptor not only as a strange evolutionary step, but as a symbol of transition, a creature living between worlds, between night and day, between reptile and bird, between earth and sky, a reminder that even the strangest designs have meaning, that even the most fleeting experiments leave echoes. The forest grows darker now, the insects quieter, the air cooler, and somewhere above, Microraptor glides silently from one branch to another, its shimmer fading into shadow, its presence lingering like a half-remembered dream until the forest returns to silence, and you are left with the strange comfort of knowing it was here, that once, long ago, the night sky belonged not only to stars, but two four-winged phantoms drifting through the trees. Microraptor, the ghost with feathers, the bird that was not yet a bird. A creature so strange it feels like a dream given flesh. And though it is gone, its shimmer remains. In memory, in story, in the gentle space between waking and sleep, where imagination carries you, and the forest of long ago waits quietly, still filled with wings, still filled with mystery. Have you ever imagined a dinosaur with a head so strange, so alien, that it looked like something out of a myth rather than reality? Picture yourself walking across a prehistoric riverbank at dusk, the sky fading from orange to purple. You hear a deep, hollow cry echoing through the still air, and then, from the shadows, it steps into view. A creature tall and elegant, with a head crowned by a long, curving crest. Its silhouette is unlike anything else you've seen. This is Corythosaurus, the dinosaur with the helmet of sound. Corythosaurus lived around 75 million years ago in what is now North America. It belonged to the family of hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs. But what set it apart was the great crest on its head, shaped almost like the helmet of an ancient warrior, arched and hollow. Inside that crest were winding tubes connected to its nasal passages, so when it called out, the sound would echo and vibrate through its head, producing deep, haunting notes that rolled across the land like the voice of a distant horn. Now, let yourself imagine standing by the river in that ancient world, the water calm, insects whispering in the tall ferns, and then, across the floodplain, you hear it, a resonant call, low and booming, so deep it seems to stir the air around you. The sound does not fade quickly, but lingers, vibrating through your chest. And then you see them, a herd of Corythosaurus, their crests glowing in the last light of sunset, heads lifted as they call to each other. The landscape filled not with silence, but with song. Scientists believe these crests were not only for sound, but also for display. Some may have been brightly colored, perhaps striped or patterned to catch the eye. Imagine a herd moving together, their crests shining like banners, each one slightly different in shape and size, each producing a slightly different tone, like a living orchestra moving across the land. The suspense lies in the mystery, because we do not know exactly what their calls sounded like. Computer models suggest low, foghorn-like notes, but perhaps some were higher, some softer. Perhaps their calls were layered, creating harmonies in the night. Imagine dozens of them gathered by the river, their voices weaving together until the whole floodplain hummed with sound. It would have been both eerie and beautiful, a lullaby written not by humans, but by dinosaurs. There is a haunting beauty in the idea that dinosaurs had voices like instruments, that their world was filled not just with roars and growls, but with music, and in Corythosaurus, that music may have carried messages. A mother calling her young, a male calling for a mate, a herd keeping together in the vast wilderness, each note rolling across the land like a beacon of belonging. Now close your eyes and step deeper into this vision. The night has fallen, stars scattered above the river. The herd of Corythosaurus moves slowly across the water's edge, their reflections shimmer as they step. And then, in the quiet, one raises its head. A single note echoes, low and steady. Another answers, and another, until the night is filled with a chorus, a deep, haunting harmony that carries far into the darkness. The sound is strange, unearthly, and yet it soothes you, because it is steady, rhythmic, endless, like the earth itself breathing. Corythosaurus reminds us that life has always sought connection, that even in ages long before humans, animals were finding ways to speak, to sing, to call, to reassure. And though their songs are gone now, the fossils of their crests whisper the memory of that music, a music that once filled the ancient air, and now drifts only in imagination. Think of how their world must have felt, not silent, but alive with strange voices. The rumble of Corythosaurus, the higher calls of Parasaurus, the chirps of smaller feathered dinosaurs in the trees. The night must have been an orchestra of beings, each voice layered upon the other. A soundscape that lulled the prehistoric earth into rhythm. As you drift further into this vision, the herd begins to fade into the distance, their calls growing softer, the river still and reflective, the night air cool and calm, and you are left with only the memory of their song, a memory that lingers, steady and soothing, until it blends with your own breath, with your own stillness, with your own sleep. Corythosaurus, the dinosaur with a helmet of sound, a creature that turned its own body into an instrument, a being both strange and beautiful. And though its song no longer echoes across the floodplains, perhaps it still echoes within us, in the way we seek music, in the way we hum to ourselves in the dark, in the way we long for voices that comfort. And so tonight, as you rest, let its music drift softly through your dreams, a song of connection, a song of peace, a song of time. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to meet a dinosaur so strange, so unlike any other creature, that it almost seems like a dream made flesh, a being with claws so long they resemble scythes, curved like crescent moons, sharp and unnerving? You might think it belonged to a nightmare, yet it was very real. This is the dinosaur that looked like it had been stitched together from impossible pieces. Picture yourself stepping quietly into a prehistoric forest, the night air filled with the scent of ferns and damp earth. The moonlight drips down through the leaves in silver threads. Somewhere in the distance, you hear soft rustling, like branches being moved aside, and then you see it, tall, looming, with a long neck and a body cloaked in feathers, its arms stretched forward, each hand carrying claws over 3 feet long. The creature pauses, tilts its head toward you, and for a moment you feel as though you are staring at something born of both bird and monster. Therizinosaurus was one of the strangest dinosaurs ever to walk the earth. It lived about 70 million years ago in what is now Mongolia. Unlike the fierce predators it resembled, it was likely a herbivore. Those long claws, terrifying as they looked, were probably used not to slash prey, but to pull down branches, to rake leaves and strip plants into its beak. Imagine a creature with the body of a lumbering giant, the claws of a predator, and the appetite of a gentle browser. It was as if nature had painted outside the lines, creating something both fearsome and oddly peaceful. The suspense grows when you picture it moving through the forest at night, its long feathers swaying like shadows, its claws catching the moonlight as it reaches up, pulling down leaves from high branches. The sound of its claws scraping bark echoes like a whisper of blades. You stay hidden, heart pounding, for though it means you no harm, you cannot help but feel a chill, because you are in the presence of something that should not exist. And yet it does, standing calm and graceful in the moonlit stillness. Scientists were baffled when they first found its claws in the 1940s. They were so huge and curved that many thought they belonged to a giant turtle. It wasn't until later that the rest of the skeleton revealed the truth. A dinosaur unlike any other, tall as a giraffe, heavy as an elephant, yet with bird-like feathers and plant-eating habits. Its claws remain among the longest of any animal in history, and even today they stir wonder and fear because they seem like weapons of war. Yet were likely tools of peace. Imagine the world it lived in, a land of forests, rivers, and open plains. Other dinosaurs roamed nearby predators like tarbosaur, swift hunters like velociraptor, and yet here was the moving slowly, steadily, using its claws not for battle, but for survival in a gentler way. In the moonlit night, you can almost see its silhouette against the trees, arms stretching high, claws extended, feathers ruffling in the wind. It looks both menacing and majestic, a paradox walking quietly through the darkness. Now imagine lying beneath those ancient trees, the ground cool, the air alive with distant calls, and overhead, the great Dinosaurus feeds, its claws scraping softly, its movements deliberate and slow, like a dream moving at half speed. There is suspense in its strangeness, yes, but there is also comfort in its calmness, for though it could strike terror with a single gesture, it chooses only to eat, to survive, to exist. And perhaps there is a lesson in that not everything that looks frightening is meant for harm, that sometimes what seems monstrous is simply misunderstood. Therizinosaurus teaches us that beauty and fear can live in the same form, that what unsettles us may also inspire us, that nature does not always follow the rules we expect. It invents, it experiments, it creates mysteries that endure even millions of years later. Now close your eyes and picture the scene once more. The forest is hushed, the stars hidden by tall canopies. You hear the slow rhythm of leaves being torn, the faint scrape of claws against bark, and then the creature turns away, its massive claws dragging lightly through the underbrush, its feathered body swaying as it moves deeper into the shadows, until only silence remains, and you are left with the memory of its shape. Half bird, half beast, wholly extraordinary Therizinosaurus, the dreamlike dinosaur of impossible design, a reminder that the past was full of wonders that still defy our imagination. And as you drift deeper into rest, let its strange form linger in your thoughts, not as a nightmare, but as a symbol that even the strangest things can carry peace, that even the sharpest claws may touch the world gently, and that the mysteries of time are endless, just waiting to be discovered in the quiet places of memory and dream. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to hear the voice of a dinosaur? Not just the roar you see in movies, not the deep bellows that shake the ground, but a sound so strange, so haunting, that it echoes like music carried by the wind. Tonight, we meet a creature whose very body was built to sing, a dinosaur that turned its head into an instrument. This is Parasaurolophus, the dinosaur with a crest that became its song. Picture yourself walking under the soft glow of moonlight in a prehistoric marsh. The air is thick with the smell of wet plants, the croak of frogs, the gentle splash of unseen fish. Tall reeds sway slowly, silver against the night sky. And then, from across the water, you hear it, a low, resonant call, like the deep tone of a distant horn. It rises, echoes, lingers in the cool night air. Another call answers, softer, melodic, carrying across the marsh, and then you see them, Parasaurolophus, with their long, elegant bodies and that extraordinary backward curving crest, like a horn sculpted from bone, stretching behind their heads. The crest was hollow, a natural instrument of resonance. Air passed through it as they breathed or called, producing sounds that could carry for miles. Some scientists believe they used it to communicate with one another, to warn of predators, to gather the herd, or perhaps even to sing in ritual. Others imagine that each Parasaurolophus had slightly different tones, so that families could recognize each other's voices across vast distances. Imagine lying in the reeds, hidden, listening as the marsh becomes a prehistoric concert hall. Each call rising like a note in the night, a harmony of creatures long gone. Parasaurolophus lived around 75 million years ago, and while it may look gentle, it was a giant, stretching over 30 feet long, weighing nearly 3 tons. Its body shaped like other hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, but it was the crest that set it apart, a strange, dreamlike structure that no other creature has ever truly matched, like carrying a trumpet fused to your skull. Yet it was not for battle, not for defense, it was for voice, a reminder that communication, connection, and sound have always been part of life's design. Imagine now, in the night, a herd of them moving across the marsh, their feet splashing gently in the shallow water, their dark shapes silhouetted against the moon. One raises its head and calls. The sound travels through the night like a long breath over a glass bottle, and another answers. The air vibrates softly with the music of their voices. It is eerie, yes, but it is also beautiful, like standing in the presence of a choir that sings in a language older than memory. The suspense lies in the mystery of their calls. For though scientists can reconstruct their possible tones, we can never truly know what they sounded like. Perhaps it was deeper than thunder, or higher than a whale's song. Perhaps it resonated in the bones of anything nearby. Perhaps it echoed so far that predators hesitated before approaching. Or maybe it was gentle, a soft lullaby meant only for their kind. The truth is lost, but the dream remains. And tonight, in the quiet, you can let your imagination fill the silence with their voices. Think of how the earth must have sounded then, not with engines, not with machines, but with creatures that used the air itself to sing. The marshes alive with frogs, insects, birds, and above it all, the haunting calls of Parasaurolophus, a soundscape both alien and familiar. For even now, across the oceans, whales call to one another, using their voices to reach farther than sight. Perhaps Parasaurolophus was the whale of its time, a singer of the land instead of the sea, a reminder that communication, song, and connection have always been as important as strength. Now imagine yourself lying back in the soft reeds, the cool marsh water lapping at the edges of the earth, the stars stretched across the sky, and you close your eyes, letting the calls wash over you like waves, deep, soft, mysterious, each note carrying through the night air, until the line between dream and reality begins to blur. You are no longer sure if you are awake, or if you have drifted into the memory of a world that existed before humans ever walked the earth. And perhaps that is the true gift of parasaural. It reminds us that sound connects us across time, that every creature, no matter how strange, seeks a way to reach another, that life has always carried music within it, whether it is the heartbeat of a mother, the chirp of crickets, the songs of whales, or the echo of a dinosaur's hollow crest. Life has always found a way to sing. So tonight, as you rest, let the haunting, beautiful call of Parasaurolophus linger in your imagination, a sound both lost and eternal, a whisper from a world long gone, a lullaby carried not by memory, but by wonder. And as you drift further into sleep, may you feel that connection across time, across silence, across the space between worlds. The call of the dinosaurs, soft and strange, still resonating somewhere in the quiet corners of the universe. Have you ever wondered if dinosaurs could truly fly? Not just glide like the earliest birds, not just leap from tree to tree, but take to the skies with wings that stretched like sails across the night. The creature we drift into now is one that blurred the line between bird and dragon. A dinosaur so strange it feels like a myth told around an ancient fire. This is Yi-Ki, the strange winged one, a dinosaur that carried bat-like wings unlike any other. Imagine yourself walking along the edge of a prehistoric forest. The air cool, the night hushed, only the soft chirr of insects filling the silence. Above you, the canopy parts, revealing a slice of star-dusted sky. And suddenly, from the branches, something stirs. You see a flicker of movement, silent and gliding. It spreads its wings, but they are not the feathered wings you expect. They shimmer in the moonlight like stretched silk, thin, membranous, almost translucent, and the creature glides past, a shadow that belongs as much to dreams as to reality. Yi-Ki lived around 160 million years ago in China. It was small, no larger than a crow. Yet what set it apart was its wings, instead of only feathers. It had a long, rod-like bone extending from its wrist, supporting a membrane of skin stretched like a bat's. A design unlike any other dinosaur. Its name, Yi-Ki, means strange wing, and it truly was. Neither fully bird nor fully reptile, a creature caught between possibilities. As if evolution had paused to sketch a wild idea across the canvas of life. Imagine sitting in the quiet forest clearing, looking up as the night becomes alive with shadows gliding from branch to branch. Yi-Ki and its kin may have leaped, soared, and fluttered, not with the power of modern birds, but with an eerie silence. Like phantoms drifting just out of reach, you watch as one spreads its wings wide, the membrane catching the moonlight like a veil, and for a moment, you wonder if you've seen a spirit of the forest, a ghost in feather and skin, yet it is real. A dinosaur unlike any you have ever imagined. There is suspense in its very design. For paleontologists still argue what Yi-Ki could truly do. Could it fly strongly, flapping like a bird? Or was it only able to glide from tree to tree? The truth is hidden, locked in bones that have lain silent for millions of years. But in the stillness of night, you can let the mystery linger. Let your imagination take flight with it. Picture it launching from a high branch, its membrane stretching taut, its feathers fluttering at the edges, gliding through the silver glow of the moon, and vanishing into the shadows like a dream escaping memory. Yiki reminds us that nature is not always logical. It is playful, experimental, sometimes strange beyond measure. Why give a dinosaur bat-like wings? Why combine feathers with membranes? Perhaps because life itself has always been trying, testing, reaching, finding new ways to touch the sky. And though Yiki may not have survived for long, its existence proves that imagination is not limited to humans. The earth itself imagines through evolution, inventing creatures so bizarre, so unlikely, that they feel like whispers from another world. Now imagine yourself lying back beneath those ancient trees. The leaves rustle softly overhead. You feel the cool moss beneath your body. The air carries the faint musk of damp bark and distant rain, and above you the shadows stir. One glides past, silent as breath, its wings stretched in silence, its eyes reflecting a glint of starlight, and for a moment you feel both awe and unease, as though you have glimpsed a secret, something the earth had once created, then hidden away, a fleeting experiment. A song quickly ended, but still you have seen it, and it lingers in your imagination. Think of how many such experiments the earth has made. How many creatures came and went, leaving only whispers in the stone. Yiki is just one we happened to find, but how many others drifted across the night sky, never to be remembered until chance uncovered their bones. Perhaps the earth is filled with secrets like this, creatures so strange that they bend the rules of what we believe possible. Creatures that remind us the story of life is far wider than the chapters we know. And perhaps that is why Yuki feels so magical, because it is proof that the world has always been stranger than we imagine, that every shadow in the forest, every flicker in the sky, might once have been something real, something that lived, breathed, and dreamed, long before we ever arrived. So let yourself drift into that thought, lying in the soft darkness, hearing the rustle of wings you cannot fully see, feeling the mystery of something ancient moving silently above. A creature, part bird, part bat, part dream, and as your breathing slows, as your body sinks deeper into stillness, let the memory of Yiki's flight carry you, not into fear, but into wonder, into the strange beauty of a world that will always hold more secrets than answers. A world that sings its lullabies through creatures half remembered, half imagined, and entirely unforgettable. Have you ever wondered if there was a dinosaur so strange, so shadowed by mystery, that even today its true nature feels hidden behind a veil? A creature with jaws long and narrow, lined with teeth like daggers, a body that could walk the land, yet seemed born for water. A predator that looked less like a dinosaur and more like a dragon emerging from the dark rivers of time. This is Spinosaurus, the sail-backed giant that ruled both land and water. A creature of such suspense and strangeness that it still unsettles scientists today. Picture yourself at the edge of a vast ancient river. The moon lies heavy in the sky, casting a pale glow across the rippling water. The air smells of mud and reeds, thick with the life of crocodiles, fish, and insects. You hear splashes in the distance, low and deep, then silence, and then, with a sound like the shifting of a great log, something rises from the shallows. At first you see only the long snout, crocodile-like, dripping with water, rows of teeth glinting in the pale light. Then a vast sail rises above the reeds, tall and jagged, a ridge of bone and skin stretching like the mast of a ship, and you realize you are staring at something that should not exist, something that belongs half to the river, half to a dream. Spinosaurus lived about 100 million years ago. In what is now North Africa, it was longer than even Tyrannosaurus, perhaps the largest carnivorous dinosaur to ever live. But what made it unique was not just its size, it was its strange body, its crocodile snout, its conical teeth, its powerful arms, its towering sail, and its ability to slip between two worlds, the land and the water. Imagine a predator that could hunt fish as easily as it could terrify anything on land, a creature that stalked silently along riversides, then lunged into the depths like a nightmare given flesh. Scientists still puzzle over its sail, that great fin of bone rising high above its back. Was it for display, to attract mates, or intimidate rivals? Was it for heat regulation, catching the sun, or shedding warmth? Or was it something stranger, a structure that cut through water like a rudder, helping it glide like a crocodilian shadow beneath the surface? The truth remains hidden, and so the sail remains a symbol of mystery, a question mark etched into the spine of one of the most bizarre predators to ever walk the earth. Imagine the suspense of standing by that ancient river, hearing nothing but the hush of water and the hum of insects, and then feeling a ripple in the current, a shadow shifting below the surface, the sail slicing through the water like a ghostly fin, and before you can even move, the creature rises, towering, dripping, its jaws snapping shut on some unseen prey. The sound echoes across the water, and then, just as quickly, it slips back into the depths, leaving only rings of water spreading in silence. The suspense of Spinosaurus lies in its duality. It does not belong fully to one world, not just the land, not just the river. It belongs to both. A hunter that lurked where boundaries blurred, where night and water and shadow became one. You could never truly see it coming, for it could move like a phantom beneath the surface, or stride with heavy steps along the riverbank, a reminder that the world was once filled with predators, stranger and more terrifying than anything we dream of today. Now imagine yourself lying quietly in that prehistoric night, the reeds tall around you, the air damp and cool. You listen to the lapping of the water, trying to convince yourself you are safe. But then you hear it, the slow exhale of something vast, the faint ripple of a sail cutting the surface. You close your eyes, not out of fear, but out of surrender, because, in the end, this is the river's world, and you are only a visitor. The Spinosaurus, the shadow of the water, has always belonged here. Its presence humbles you, reminds you that life does not always fit our expectations. It invents monsters, singers, dreamers, and shadows, and Spinosaurus was all of these at once. Perhaps that is why we are so fascinated by it, because it refuses to be one thing. It refuses to be simple. It carries its mysteries in every part of its body. The sail that defies explanation, the jaws that suggest crocodile yet belong to a dinosaur, the body that hints at swimmer yet could stride the land. It is as if nature wanted to remind us that even its most fearsome creations are also its most enigmatic. So let yourself drift into that thought, that the river of time is filled with shadows like this. Creatures half known, half imagined, and though their bones rest in stone, their presence still ripples through our minds. You can feel it even now. The faint brush of water against your imagination, the sail breaking the surface, the silence after the splash, and the knowledge that some mysteries are meant not to be solved, but simply to be wondered at. Spinosaurus, the shadow of rivers, the dragon of the water's edge. Let it linger in your dreams tonight, not as a nightmare, but as a reminder that mystery itself is beautiful. That suspense is not always fear. Sometimes it is wonder stretched into silence. Sometimes it is the quiet thrill of knowing the world was stranger than we will ever fully grasp. And in that strangeness there is peace, the kind that lulls you deeper into stillness, deeper into rest, deeper into the river of sleep itself. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to stand in the presence of a dinosaur that seemed less like a predator or a plant-eater, and more like a living paradox, a creature that walked the line between giant and fragile, between beauty and menace, between bird and nightmare? Tonight, we drift into the story of Dinosaurs, a dinosaur so baffling that when its arms were first discovered, they were mistaken for the limbs of a monstrous killer. Yet the truth turned out to be far stranger. Picture yourself on the open floodplains of ancient Mongolia. The night is vast, the sky stretched endlessly, the Milky Way shimmering across the horizon like a river of silver. The air smells of damp mud and distant rain. Shadows ripple as the wind pushes across tall ferns and reeds, and then, emerging from the darkness, you see it, towering, bird-like, with a long hump-backed body, a duck-like bill gleaming in the moonlight, its massive arms swinging slowly at its sides, each hand tipped with claws longer than your forearm. You hold your breath, unsure if you are looking at a predator or something altogether stranger. When Dinosaurs was first uncovered in the 1960s, only its arms were found, and they were enormous, over 8 feet long, with claws that looked like the weapons of some fearsome hunter. For decades, paleontologists imagined it as a killer, a dinosaur that slashed with its massive limbs. But when the full skeleton was finally discovered, the truth stunned the scientific world. Dinosaurs was not a predator, but a peaceful giant, one of the largest members of the ostrich-like dinosaurs. Its arms were long, not for hunting, but for pulling plants from wetlands. Its bill shaped to scoop water plants and sift food from the mud. It looked less like a monster and more like a strange, towering water bird, a cross between a duck, a camel, and a nightmare. Imagine it moving across the moonlit floodplain, its humpbacked body swaying with each step, its arms reaching out like cranes in the night, the claws dragging lightly through reeds and shallow pools. Every movement is both eerie and mesmerizing, because it should be terrifying. Those claws, that size, that silhouette, yet the creature moves with calm. A giant that feeds on quiet things, pulling plants from the mud, scooping fish from the water. Its presence unsettling, yet not violent. You realize you are staring at one of nature's great illusions. A creature designed to look like a monster, but living its life in peace. The suspense deepens when you think of what it must have looked like to others. Smaller dinosaurs hiding in the shadows, crocodiles lurking in the water, predators like Tarbosaurus watching from afar. Would they have mistaken it for a rival? Or would they have recognized that this strange giant was not a threat? Its massive arms could defend, yes, but its hunger was for plants. Its life carried in the stillness of wetlands and rivers, not in the chaos of the hunt. Scientists now believe Dinosaurs had a great sail-like hump on its back, a structure of tall spines rising from its vertebrae, adding to its surreal silhouette. Imagine the moonlight catching that ridge, casting strange shadows on the reeds, its duckbill dipping into the water with soft ripples, its claws pulling at tangled weeds, its arms moving like shadows of machinery, a rhythm slow, deliberate, almost hypnotic. The mystery of Dinosaurs is not just in how it looked, but in how it reminds us that appearances can mislead. For decades, it was imagined as a terror, a slasher of the night, yet in truth it was a gentle grazer, perhaps even graceful in its oddness. Its story is a reminder that the past is filled with surprises, that what seems monstrous may hide a peaceful truth, that mystery itself can lull the mind into stillness. Now imagine lying on that prehistoric floodplain, the ground cool beneath you, the stars endless above and nearby. The great shape of Dinosaurs moves through the shallow waters, its claws cutting quiet patterns in the mud, its bill dipping and rising, each movement soft, unhurried. You feel no fear now, only awe, for though it is strange, though it seems assembled from mismatched parts, it is also serene, a dreamlike reminder that life does not need to make sense to be beautiful. The suspense it brings is gentle, the kind that keeps your heart awake just long enough to wonder, but soft enough to let your eyes grow heavy, because, in the end, Dinosaurs was never the monster we thought it was. It was stranger, and somehow kinder, a giant shadow on the floodplain, living quietly under the same stars you see tonight. So let yourself drift with that image, the peaceful giant with impossible arms, its silhouette etched against the moonlit sky, its claws not weapons, but tools of survival, its strangeness a lullaby for the imagination. And as it fades into the distance, into the reeds, into the timeless night, let your mind follow, into the calm, into the strange, into the deep river of dreams. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to be watched, not by a massive predator with thunderous steps, but by something smaller, quicker, and infinitely cleverer, something that studied you in the shadows, that waited, calculating, before deciding what to do? Tonight we meet Truden, a dinosaur whose brain was large for its body, whose eyes gleamed with unusual size, and whose very existence raises chilling questions. Picture the prehistoric night in a way you rarely imagine it, not roaring with giants, but still and hushed, the kind of silence that makes the hair on the back of your neck rise. The ground is soft with ferns, the air damp with mist, and the stars scatter above you like white fire. From the shadows, two golden eyes shine, not enormous, but wide, unblinking, the eyes of a creature built to see in darkness. They belong to Truden, a hunter no bigger than a human, but carrying an intelligence that makes you uneasy, as though you are not the one studying it, but it is the one studying you. Truden's name means wounding tooth. Its teeth were small and serrated, perfect for slicing into flesh or snapping through small bones. But that alone was not what made it strange. It was its brain, relative to its body size. Truden's brain was enormous for a dinosaur, closer in proportion to modern birds, and eerily near to what we think of as mammalian cleverness. Some scientists once wondered if it could problem solve, if it hunted in packs, if it was capable of more than just instinct. And when you imagine it in the night, those questions feel heavy, because suddenly you are not facing a brute force predator, but a thinking one. Its eyes add another layer of mystery. They were huge, forward-facing, giving Truden excellent depth perception and excellent night vision. Imagine it slipping silently through the prehistoric undergrowth, the moonlight painting silver lines across its feathers, its clawed feet stepping carefully, barely making a sound, and on its second toe, that curved, sickle-like, claw-sharp, raised, waiting not unlike the infamous velociraptor, but smaller, subtler, used perhaps to pin down prey with precision, like a surgeon's scalpel in the night. What makes Truden even more unsettling is the what if it carries. What if it had lived longer? What if its intelligence had continued to evolve? Would it have become something more? A dinosaur, not only surviving, but building, planning, shaping its world. Some paleontologists once speculated about this, even sketching out what they called the dinosauroid, a hypothetical descendant, a creature with long fingers, large eyes, a body upright and eerily humanoid, like something that would step out of a dream or a nightmare. And when you lie in the darkness and think of that, you feel the chill of suspense, that delicate thrill of imagining how close reality sometimes comes to our myths. But step back into the ancient forest with me. See Truden not as a fantasy, but as it likely was, a feathered hunter weaving silently under the trees, its plumage catching starlight, its eyes always moving, its head cocked in quick, bird-like motions. Looking, calculating, it hunts smaller creatures, mammals, lizards, insects. It might raid nests for eggs, its teeth slicing easily through whatever it caught. It was not the king of its world, but the clever shadow within it, the watcher, the opportunist, the presence you might never hear until it was too late. Imagine lying in that ancient night, the forest pressing close around you, every rustle making your heart beat faster, and then, in the corner of your vision, a pair of eyes reflect the moonlight, silent, waiting, not charging at you like a tyrannosaurus, not towering over you like a sauropod, but crouched, still, patient. And you know in that moment that you are not alone, that something has already seen you, already considered you, already decided whether to approach or to vanish. The suspense is almost unbearable. But strangely, it is also soothing, because, in imagining it, you give your mind permission to wander, to slip into the dream of being there without ever needing to escape it. The beauty of Truden lies not only in what it was, but in what it represents, a glimpse at how strange and diverse intelligence can be, how evolution experiments with awareness, and how sometimes the scariest predators are not the loudest or the largest, but the quiet ones, the watchers, the thinkers, the ones that make you wonder what it means to be alive at all. So let yourself drift into that forest. The ferns cool against your skin, the stars a blanket overhead, the golden eyes of Truden glowing just beyond the trees. It does not come closer, it does not move, it only watches, until the watching itself begins to dissolve into calm, until the mystery becomes comfort, until the sharpness of fear softens into the stillness of sleep, and you, like Truden, are left wandering in a dream, quiet, balanced between suspense and serenity. Have you ever wondered what it means to face a predator that does not just hunt the weak or the small, but sometimes, in moments of hunger or desperation, turns its gaze on its own kind? Tonight we drift toward a creature whose very name carries an echo of dread. A hunter from Madagascar called Majungasaurus, a dinosaur that some scientists believe may have been a cannibal. Its very bones telling a story as eerie as the night itself. Picture Madagascar, not as you know it today, but as it was 70 million years ago. A land of thick forests and winding rivers. The air heavy with the calls of strange birds and insects. The moon bright but veiled by drifting clouds. You stand at the edge of a clearing. The grass sways with the night wind, and then you hear it, a low rumble, a vibration carried through the earth itself. The heavy footfalls of something immense. And through the mist steps Majungasaurus, its skull broad and blunt, its jaws lined with serrated teeth that gleam faintly in the silver light. A horn-like bump rises above its eyes, casting strange shadows across its face. It does not roar, it does not charge, it simply looks, as though weighing and measuring the world around it, including you. Majungasaurus was a relative of the famous Abelisaur family, stocky predators with short, stubby arms, but powerful legs and crushing jaws. Its head was built like a sledgehammer, each bite designed to tear and grind. It was slower than some of its cousins, not as swift as a raptor, not as towering as a tyrannosaur, but in its own domain. It was the undisputed master, and what made it even stranger, even darker, was the evidence hidden in the fossil record. Bite marks on the bones of other Majungasaurus, marks that matched perfectly with its own teeth, marks that whispered a story of cannibalism. Imagine it now, a silent night hunt. The air filled with the smell of wet soil and decaying leaves. A Majungasaurus follows the trail of a fallen dinosaur, the body of another predator. Not prey in the ordinary sense, but prey nonetheless. Its teeth sink into flesh that once belonged to a rival, its jaws grinding through bone, the sound sharp and echoing under the stars. The scene both horrifying and strangely mesmerizing, because nature, then as now, was not bound by our sense of order. It was bound only by survival, by hunger, by the primal law that life consumes life. Some scientists suggest that Majungasaurus may not have hunted its own kind directly, but scavenged their bodies when food was scarce. Others believe the evidence points to something more deliberate, that it may indeed have killed and eaten others of its kind. Whatever the truth, the thought of it prowling the night with that possibility adds a sharp edge to its shadow. Imagine lying in the darkness of ancient Madagascar, the stars blurred by drifting mist, the ground trembling under each heavy step, and knowing that the creature moving just beyond the tree line might not only hunt the weak, but the strong, might not only take the prey before it, but even the hunters beside it. The suspense in this image is not one of speed or flight, but of inevitability. Majungasaurus does not rush, it does not need to. It walks with the slow assurance of a king, a predator whose power comes not from cunning like Trudon, nor from sheer size like Spinosaurus, but from a brutal certainty that whatever it catches, it will consume, even if that catch is its own reflection. The strange bump on its skull adds to its unsettling image. Was it for display, for combat, for recognition among its own kind? We may never know, but in the moonlight it gives the predator a silhouette like no other, a crown of bone above eyes that glint with hunger, eyes that seem to pierce even the distance of millions of years. Now drift into that forest clearing again. The ferns rustle, the mist swirls, and you see it standing there. Majungasaurus, broad and heavy, its jaws opening slowly, teeth glistening as the starlight touches them. You hear the deep rumble of its breath, the sound of air pulled through lungs, vast and ancient. It lowers its head to feed, the sound of bone cracking echoing in the still night. It is horrifying, but it is also strangely calming, because there is no malice here, no cruelty, only the endless rhythm of survival, the same rhythm that cradles every living thing, even you, here, now, in the quiet of your bed. The mystery of Majungasaurus lingers as both fear and fascination. It reminds us that the past was not simple, that survival was not always noble, that sometimes the strangest truth is also the most haunting, and that, in the grand tapestry of time, even the cannibals of the past are part of the story of life. So let the image of this strange predator stay with you. A shadow in the mist, heavy footsteps fading into the night, its jaws closing on bones older than dreams. And as you imagine that, let yourself breathe deeper, because the suspense it brings is not to keep you awake, but to lead you gently toward that edge of imagination, where fear turns to wonder, and wonder folds into sleep. Like Majungasaurus fading into the fog, you too can fade into the timeless stillness, drifting, safe, held by the ancient quiet. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to float in a vast ocean at night? The stars glittering above you like scattered diamonds, the water stretching endlessly in every direction, the silence broken only by your breathing. And then, beneath the surface, a shadow longer than a bus glides past, smooth, silent, ancient. That shadow belongs to the Leviathan of the seas, a predator that made even the oceans tremble. Picture yourself adrift in the warm, shallow seas of the late Cretaceous. The moonlight spills across the waves, silver ripples stretching to the horizon. The water is calm on the surface, but beneath, life swirls in endless patterns. Schools of fish shimmer like living ribbons, ancient turtles paddle slowly, and ammonites drift with their spiral shells, catching glints of light. Yet all of them move with urgency, for something is near, something vast and hungry, and then it appears, a colossal shape breaking the silence, its jaws yawning open like the gates of a nightmare, teeth curved and glistening, its body powered by a tail that moves like a whip through the dark. Mosasaurus, the true dragon of the ancient seas. Unlike the giants of the land, Mosasaurus was not bound by gravity. Its body moved with fluid grace, stretching up to 50 feet long, with jaws that could crush a shark, its skull shaped for speed and precision, each tooth sharp enough to pierce bone. And what made it more eerie was its ability to rise silently beneath prey, to strike upward with terrifying force. Imagine swimming in calm waters, and suddenly, from the depths, a mouth opens wider than a doorway, and the ocean itself seems to swallow you. What made Mosasaurus strange was not only its size, but its lineage. It was not a dinosaur, but a marine reptile, closer to lizards than to the giant fish we might imagine. Its body built from the blueprint of a terrestrial hunter, but remade for the sea, limbs transformed into flippers, a long, muscular tail propelling it like a torpedo, eyes set forward, always searching, always watching. The sea was its kingdom, and within it, nothing was beyond reach. Now, drift with me into the deep. Imagine yourself sinking slowly, the surface above glowing faintly with moonlight, and below, darkness thickens into an endless abyss. A shape glides upward, larger than anything you have ever seen. Its flippers move with slow, deliberate strokes, its jaws part slightly, rows of teeth catching even the faintest glimmer. Your heartbeat quickens, because, in the vast emptiness of the ocean, there is nowhere to run, only silence, and the endless suspense of not knowing when it will strike. Mosasaurus fed on everything it could overpower, from fish to turtles, from sharks to other marine reptiles. Even giant squid may have fallen prey to its relentless hunger. Its bite was not delicate. It was brutal, designed to clamp, to crush, to hold. It shook its prey until bones snapped, until silence returned, and then it consumed. Imagine hearing the echoes of those struggles beneath the waves, muffled, distant, like thunder rolling through water. A reminder that even in the serene calm of the sea, violence was always near. But there is another kind of suspense here too, the mystery of the deep itself. Even now, the ocean holds secrets we have not uncovered, creatures we have not named, places untouched by light. When you imagine Mosasaurus gliding through those depths, it becomes more than a predator. It becomes a symbol of the unknown, a whisper that the past was stranger. And the ocean stranger, still, now return to the surface with me. Lie back on the water as the night sky stretches above, the stars endless, the moon pale and watching. And beneath you, unseen, the giant shape of Mosasaurus passes by, its shadow brushing yours. Its silence so complete it feels like a dream. There is no chase, no sound. Just the awareness of something immense, moving beneath a presence vast and indifferent. And in that awareness, you feel the true suspense, not terror, but the hush of mystery, the kind that pulls you deeper into thought, deeper into wonder, deeper into sleep. Because Mosasaurus reminds us that the world is never empty, that even in silence, even in stillness, life moves beneath the surface, strange, vast, and beautiful. Its teeth may have ended countless lives, but its shadow now ends only your restlessness, guiding you gently into calm, as though the ocean itself were rocking you, as though the waves were whispering, as though the great reptile has long since left its hunger behind, and now swims only in your dreams. So let yourself drift through the water, through the starlight, through the hush of ancient seas, with Mosasaurus gliding beneath, a ghost of power and silence, a reminder that even the most terrifying shadows can become soothing when seen from the soft distance of time. And with that thought, the suspense fades into peace. The ocean cradles you, the stars keep watch, and the great predator disappears into the deep as you disappear into sleep.